Joining us now for a closer look at midday trade is Viv Govender from Rand Swiss Offshore. Hi Viv, good to chat to you once again. Good to have you on a business lunch. What are the markets looking like this Friday? It's been a bit of a strange week up and down. What are you seeing at the moment, Viv?
Again, we're having that kind of discrepancy between the resource sector and basically the other sector of the economy. The resource sector at the moment up just under 3%, whereas, financials basically flat to negative, industrial slightly negative. The gold price is, once more above 5,000, an ounce. We are seeing, of course, the dangers happening in the Middle East around the oil price, which is obviously, quite troublesome for the world. It's as good as it is for us to have a stronger gold price. Higher oil prices are going to be much more damaging to the economy because we are net importers of oil. So if you look at the big movers of the day, you're going to see that DRD Gold, Implats, Goldfields, Anglo Gold, which was all among the winners of the day. On the downside, the biggest losers are, SPAR, down 7%. The other losers out there, Carew, Process, Naspers, etc., down a little bit, but nowhere near as bad as SPAR.
Yeah, talking about SPAR, let's talk about what's happened there. Of course, you would have heard now in our news bulletin, of course, the CEO stepping down. What's the situation with SPAR? It's been very volatile. They've gone through a very difficult period.
Yeah, volatile implies up and down. Unfortunately, this has been mostly down. It's down almost 60% of its value over the last 5 years. So if you put 100 rands in back, 5 years ago, right now you'd have about 43 rands. So that's not a great sign to have. Year to date as well, even it was also a bad sign when you see a big fall, like a 7% fall in the day. Look what the recent movements in the stock price has been. It's also been down even in the recent times. So the news today was not just bad, it was bad even given the fact that the market will be pricing in some bad news. I do think that the retail sector is undergoing a huge amount of disruption at the moment. People may not be realizing it, but I saw the latest results from ShopRite a little while ago, and they're 60/60 business that guys on motorbikes that deliver stuff to your house. That business alone is more towards, I think the revenue is larger than the market capitalization of either SPAR and or Pick and Pay. So just to give an idea of how big a player ShopRite is, a small part of its business is bigger than SPAR or Pick and Pay. And if you look at where the trends are going forward in terms of the retail sector, I foresee a future, in the next 5 to 10 years where you're likely to have more and more consolidation, more and more, economies of scale, because the delivery business is growing in leaps and bounds. People are now getting used to the idea of just basically on the phone ordering their stuff and having to deliver to the house. It changes how things operate. The franchise model that SPAR has doesn't really work as well as the more centralized model that Checkers has, for instance.
Yeah, it certainly has to change itself. It does, it really does. All right, some of the other ones as well today. Sibanye, Stillwater, following on from Goldfields, following on from DRD Gold at the moment. These miners can't lose, can they?
Well, they can lose if the gold price goes down, which they have no control over, or the platinum price goes down, and they actually have no control over it. And that's the real thing with these gold miners, platinum miners, etc. And obviously, Sibanye is a combination. You are looking at a situation in which you are so dependent on the price of your commodity, and you have absolutely no control over it. We are not OPEC. We don't have the ability to go and, even OPEC doesn't have control entirely as much as it used to about the oil price. At least they have something. Now, we are pretty much price takers in this field. And like I said, the gold price is about $5,000 an ounce. The platinum price recovered quite nicely from the lows it had a little while ago. Then we're going to be seeing, for instance, a huge amount of positivity coming through for these miners. And you've seen that in the last little while. Should we see the prices reverse? Obviously, it's going to affect them negatively as well. They can do operational things, but generally they are pretty well organized. When you go underground, kilometers underground and dig stuff up and you move thousands of tons of rocks and so on, you can't really survive by being incompetent. So these guys usually know what they're doing. But they're just, like I said, totally at the mercy of the commodity price that they're dealing with.
Yeah. Now, the big story today is Anglo and what's happening with them. There's this write-down. What are your thoughts on that? There's been a bit of concern about Anglo. They seem to know what they are doing. What are you thinking?
Yeah, look, I do think that, obviously there's a lot of activity happening. They had a lot of corporate actions recently, etc. I do think, we are in a situation in which there is a bit of a change happening to the way the world is working right now. I think that, again, I always talk about AI and people think that maybe I'm a bit of AI, pulled or something. My brain's a bit too focused on AI. Yeah. But if you look at the amount of money being spent in the next year by these AI companies, it's something like $750 billion. This was announced, $750 billion in the next year on AI spending. That's going to translate into things like demand for copper, demand for the raw materials that go into things, the rare earths and so on. doesn't quite translate into some of the stuff that Anglo is making in the same way as and the stuff that was as important in the past. That being said, I do see that if we do see economic growth try to pick up, which people do expect to happen over the next couple of years, I mean, people are expecting, seriously strong growth in the US, for instance, this year, and China will follow, I think, along with that as well. Maybe Anglo might be, positively affected by that as well going forward. But right now, they unfortunately are not on the right side of that particular shift.
Yeah. Viv, just to wrap the week with tech stocks, and this time last week, it was a horror story in a way. We all thought this bubble was bursting and things were going on. This week it's been totally different. We saw Meta getting a deal with NVIDIA, et cetera, et cetera. Are you tracking the tech stocks? What are you seeing?
Yeah, I mean, I do think that what's been happening here is, look, there's two ways to view this thing. You don't go out and increase your spending as massively as these companies have. And I mean, we were talking about when you saw the Google results coming out, Alphabet results, we saw Microsoft's numbers coming out, we saw Amazon's numbers coming out, Meta's numbers. Everybody is dramatically increasing the amount that they're spending on AI. And also understand that, whatever we see in the marketplace right now is probably 6 months to a year behind what these guys in the labs are seeing. So they get whatever they get out there, they make sure it's reasonably safe, not totally safe, but reasonably safe, and then they put it out to the public. And that time period takes about 6 months, a year or so. So they are seeing stuff in the labs right now that makes them believe that they want to be spending the kind of money that they're spending. And they want to, in fact, be increasing the amount they was planning on spending on AI. Like I said, $700 billion of AI-related and other capital expenditures by these companies over the next year.
Yeah.
That is obviously a sign that they are seeing something that we are not at the moment. If you look just purely at the marketplace right now, I mean, do you understand that for a company like Microsoft to put $200 billion out there to spend, that $200 billion has to translate to something like about $1 trillion of GDP growth for Microsoft to have any chance of getting their money back, or more likely $2-3 trillion in GDP growth to get that money back. That is, for the US, for instance, that's basically, or for the world as a whole, that's 2 to 3% of global GDP has to be boosted up just to Microsoft to get back its spending for this year. We are not seeing the reality and on the ground that's justifying that. But like I said, these guys know things we don't. Maybe they are seeing things we don't at the moment.
We'll leave it to them for now. Viv, what is your stock pick?
CATL, it's a Chinese battery maker. I do think the Chinese battery guys have a better chance than the Chinese car guys of, exporting their stuff to the world, because of course the cars have, cameras, and there's dangers about spying and all the other kind of, conspiracy theories out there. But Chinese batteries makers are, I think, pretty good. You've seen what already happened with solar, demand globally, and Africa solar demand has skyrocketed. That has to be followed with battery demand, especially if we do think that we're going to have a future with more driverless cars, which are obviously going to be electric, as well as, robotics and so on. So CATL is a battery maker out of China, one of the big battery makers out there. And I think that, if you're looking at playing that kind of aspect of AI, that might be something to look at.
Yeah, interesting stock pick. Thank you so much, Viv. Good to have you wrapping the week with us on a Friday. Thanks for taking the time. That was Viv Govender from Rand Swiss Offshore.